When a human body rots, it breaks down into basic organic compounds. But for the ancient Egyptians, biological decay meant absolute erasure of existence. To understand this, we have to look at their concept of the self. The human soul was a composite of several interconnected parts, and the most grounded of these was the khat, the physical corpse itself. This diagram maps the strict dependency of the Egyptian soul. The khat serves as a literal anchor for the spiritual entities, the ka, or life force, and the ba, the personality. These spirits required a recognizable physical vessel to return to. If that body degraded, the tether snapped, and the soul faced total dissolution. That severe ontological threat drove the creation of mummification. The practice was engineered to halt biological putrefaction and keep the khat intact, ensuring spiritual survival. Processing the corpse required a strictly scheduled algorithm of chemistry, surgery, and ritual. This protocol lasted exactly 70 days. The duration of this process was reverse-engineered from astronomy. Every year, the bright star Sirius disappeared from the night sky for precisely 70 days. When Sirius finally reappeared in its heliacal rising, it signaled the annual flooding of the Nile. This cycle of absence and return provided the cosmic template for human death and rebirth. This chart maps that 70-day celestial cycle directly onto the terrestrial surgical process of embalming. The physical treatment of the body aligns perfectly with the star's trajectory below the horizon. This protocol synchronized the breakdown of human tissue with the exact duration of the stellar cycle. Looking at the first 15 days of the chart, we enter the surgical phase. The immediate priority was removing the tissues most prone to rapid putrefaction. That started with excerebration, the extraction of the brain. The Egyptians assumed intellect resided elsewhere, making the brain a useless, high-risk vector for decay. Embalmers hammered a chisel through the nasal cavity to access the cranium. Because brain tissue is too soft to be extracted in chunks, a bronze hook whisked the material into a liquid slurry, draining it out through the nose. This aggressive internal surgery bypassed the exterior entirely, intentionally preserving the face. The soul required a recognizable visage to ensure a successful return. Next came abdominal evisceration. Using an obsidian blade, embalmers made a precise incision exclusively on the left side of the abdomen, the side symbolically associated with death. Through this slit, they extracted the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines. These organs were treated separately and placed into dedicated containers known as canopic jars. But the embalmers made a singular exception. The heart, or ob, was deliberately left inside the chest cavity. In Egyptian physiology, the heart was the actual anatomical seat of intellect and memory. It contained the record of a person's earthly actions, which would be required during the final judgment weighing ceremony. The entire surgical phase was an act of extreme biological triage. The embalmers selectively discarded the primary vectors of decay while preserving the anatomical core of human identity. Moving to days 16 through 50 on the timeline, the protocol shifted from surgery to advanced organic chemistry. This was the longest continuous step, total chemical desiccation. The primary agent for this was natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture harvested from dried lake beds. The corpse was packed internally and varied completely in amount of this material. This visualization shows natron's dual properties. It aggressively absorbs water out of cells while simultaneously triggering saponification, converting lipid molecules into a soap-like barrier. Over 40 days, the body loses 75% of its weight, reaching perfect moisture equilibrium. The natron treatment transitioned the corpse from a highly biodegradable organism into a rigid, permanent environment hostile to bacterial life. The final block on the chart covers days 51 to 68. The desiccation process left the skin shriveled and tough, requiring embalmers to restore the tissue and build a final barrier against the outside environment. To achieve this, they utilized a globally sourced pharmacopoeia, coating the body in a complex mixture of specific oils and liquid resins. This map highlights recent chemical residue discoveries from a Saqqara embalming workshop. It reveals a massive supply chain bringing highly specific antimicrobial resins like elemi and damar from Southeast Asia and the Levant directly to the embalming tables in Egypt. The head received specialized attention. Every 4 days, embalmers applied red linen coated in antibacterial plant resins to the face. This repeated interval ensured the deceased's facial features remained intact and recognizable. The subsequent wrapping process involved layering hundreds of meters of linen over the body. Embalmers applied liquid resin between the bandages to form a hardened shell, while strategically inserting protective amulets deep within the folds. One of the most important insertions was the heart scarab. Placed precisely over the chest, this amulet was carved with a spell meant to magically prevent the heart from testifying against the deceased in the afterlife. By day 68, the transformation was complete. The vulnerable mortal flesh had been engineered into a pharmacologically sealed, magically armed vessel, ready for eternity. On day 69, the engineered body was secured inside an escalating series of nested physical defenses. The mummy went into a molded cartonnage shell, followed by an inner wooden coffin, an outer wooden coffin, and finally, a massive stone sarcophagus. The inner anthropoid coffin was designed to give the spirit a secondary, physical face to recognize, serving as a backup target for the soul if the mummy itself was compromised. The outer wooden layers and the heavy stone sarcophagus provided a dual function. They acted as a physical bunker to deter tomb robbers, while their inscribed surfaces created a spiritual fortress lined with protective spells. These layered defenses functioned as a fortified launchpad, securing the soul's biological anchor against the environmental and spiritual threats of the underworld. Despite the chemical perfection of the 70-day process, the resulting mummy was considered spiritually inert. To function, the hardware required a system reboot. That reboot occurred on the final day, at the entrance to the tomb, through a ritual known as the opening of the mouth ceremony. Priests used precise ritual tools, like the peshesh kef, a blade originally used to sever umbilical cords, to touch the mummy's face and symbolically reanimate its sensory organs. This final act of magical coating restored the deceased's ability to eat, breathe, and speak in the afterlife. The 70-day protocol achieved a total synthesis of empirical chemistry and surgical intervention, transforming mortal remains into a permanent, sensory-active vessel for the afterlife.